Hi, Linda here. Remember, we are the media now. Thanks so much for joining me. As some of you know, I've been censored off LinkedIn and on Facebook. I have been denied access to groups, serial censorship going back to 2016, 2017. So I'm learning other platforms, YouTube included. This is my fourth try at this video. Don't know where they went. But as you know, I have to learn to be a public speaker and I have to be able to give oral testimony in the court. And I've got a court hearing coming up on Tuesday. So the final delivery will probably be in writing on a blog. One of my coaches recommended that everything I do on social media from here on out has a call to action. So my first call to action would be I would welcome your prayers. I'm dealing with some pretty dangerous characters in litigation, Linda Ayers versus State Farm et al. Long story short, I know a lot of people think that I'm just mad because my roof blew off and State Farm denied the claim. The way one of the attorneys expressed the situation to the judge, one of these forms, I had it right here. Basically, they said, oh, can't find it. Hold on, let me pause. There's a pause button here somewhere. I think. Well, pause. Okay, be right back. Okay, so the way one of the defense firms describes the case in the complaint, they say that plaintiff alleges numerous causes of action stemming from a quote sudden roof loss unquote in February 2019 and claims breach of contract, breach of duty of good faith and fair dealing, intentional interference with contractual obligations and conspiracy, fraud, intentional representation, negligence, toxic exposure, and RICO um, against her insurer and all those who have worked on the project. Well, those are the causes of action and that we're trying to get into the court. But due to guerrilla lawfare and just basic run-of-the-mill lawfare, only one of the defendants, first there were 10, and 5 of the parties reached resolution subject to a confidentiality agreement. But one of the most vexatious defense firms has, to use one of its peers' commentary, has been running this case like a runaway train. They have made it impossible for any of the other defendants to be heard by the court. They have abused discovery to no end. They have absolutely discriminated against this elderly, disabled female white woman. And they seem to be getting away with it. Last October, they took me into court and tried to convince the judge to violate my First Amendment rights. Thank God we have a judge that supports our Constitution. They also did more gaslighting, and I prevailed in that hearing. And then I did a second ex parte hearing asking the court for protection because these guys have threatened me. They have threatened my life. They have threatened my property with invasive damages. They've made it very clear that their intention, their full and clear written intention, is to destroy me financially. And that's a pretty funky way to handle an approved claim. So I missed a deadline to object to a motion to compel with sanctions because I was led to believe it was taken off calendar because I spent about 6 weeks amending discovery matters. I tell you, the lack of integrity in the legal profession in California is just unconscionable. And I'm not an attorney. I'm a real estate broker. You know, I have to know a little bit about the law. I have supported very powerful and important men over my career, so I know a little bit about how things work. And I have a very low tolerance for psychopaths. And the behavior that I have been exposed to seems to, kind of meet clinical psychopaths or corporate psychopaths policies. There's something on, you can Google it. It's verbal self-defense against the corporate psychopath. I keep referring to that, but you know, I'm kind of outnumbered. In the beginning, it was 10 defendants, and I think there were like 16 lawyers and 8 law firms. Now we're down to 5 defendants, 4 law firms. State Farm, I guess, just got backup. There's 2 additional attorneys who are getting copied on things. I didn't know if they were replacements or a backup. But what I have to do is practice my oral testimony. I have maybe 20 minutes to talk to the judge and dispute the deceptions, and these guys aren't honest. They're just not honest. So anyway, I have to be able to speak articulately. I have disabilities. I got hurt at work in 2012. I whacked my head. I'm very sensitive to blonde jokes. And when I've asked for very, very simple disability accommodations, I've asked the attorneys to do service through the US mail and send me electronic copies so that I can have kind of checks and balances so I don't miss deadlines. Well, one of the firms has not only refused to do that, they have intentionally bombarded me with a level of discovery abuse that they admitted not even a seasoned litigator could handle. And then they stopped sending me electronic copies. And do you know what it's like to deal with a lot of litigation? You can't, just plug it into your computer and do a search and bring things up. So they've been vexatious, overburdening the plaintiff, and it's because they can't defend their client. Long story short on that, State Farm told me I had to use their preferred vendors. That is illegal, and it's a lie. But that's how this case went out of control. The State Farm adjuster in Arizona, I live in California near Joshua Tree National Park. That keeps me sane looking out at the park. It's beautiful. Okay, so they said that I had to use their contractors, their vendors. So they sent out Paul Davis Restoration as the general contractor, and they sent out one of their competitors to, I don't know why they had the 2 of them. I didn't know they were competitors. I don't know the restoration world. So anyway, those boys couldn't get an estimate together in over 40 days. They put a plastic tarp on the house that did nothing to keep the rain out. So through multiple storms, rain, wind, and snowstorms, my house had unabated water intrusion through every fixture, through every door jamb, through the 65% of the roof was gone. So I talked to my State Farm agent and I said, listen, they're destroying my house and they won't let me replace these guys. The adjuster in Arizona, he would listen to me cry and I said, my God, they're destroying my house. Please let me dismiss them and get some real people out here. And he said, I will never forget. He said, Linda, nobody likes the State Farm preferred vendor program, but we're stuck with it. Now, he finally authorized dismissal of the people that they had sent because it was clear that they damaged my home. So, but here's the kicker. They called American Environmental Group and requested a mold clearance report. And that was necessary in order to rebuild because, when you have walls that were identified as water saturated, that were not demolished, that were not remediated, I wasn't going to let them just build back, so that they could kill me. I said, we need a mold clearance report. Well, AEG is apparently some sort of a hotshot in the industry, and they were purchased or acquired by McLaren's company. So it's a global entity, probably part of the WEF too. So they provided State Farm adjusters in Arizona with a baseline mold report and found no mold, not one itty bitty mold spore after 40 days of unabated water intrusion, and there was apparently no remediation. I asked for, information on the chemicals that they initially remediated with, no response. So State Farm spent $101,000 to rebuild my house. When I moved back in, I found mold. I reported it immediately. And then I had to have more mold reports because it's like, oh my God, I think there's the walls that they didn't knock down are probably contaminated. So I had AEG come back out in August of 2019. They would not come without permission from their client, State Farm. And they got permission to come out, and they wrote another report that defies science. And it basically said there were unacceptable air quality levels, but they put a little asterisk by it. And I called the lab guy, and I said, well, what's the asterisk? What does that mean? It's not going to kill me immediately? I said, what would you do? And he said, well, lady, if you were my mother, I would tell you to clean all the surfaces. Now, that sounds pretty fishy, doesn't it? I mean, if the mold is more than likely, in all probability, behind walls that were identified as water saturated, but they were not demolished, they were not remediated, why on earth would an environmental company tell a State Farm policyholder to just clean the surfaces? And then if there's still problems, let us know. That report, that second report, and you can find them on my blog site, gotcontractorcomplaints.com. Everything's there. I'm transparent. All I wanted was my home restored to pre-loss condition. So their second report basically appeared to be covering up the negligence, fraud, or just outright deceptions of their first one. I have 7 other reports showing increasing toxic exposure. By December, I got sick. I got real sick. All my body broke out, and I went to a dermatologist, and he said, "Oh, well, we've got to check for this, that, and the other thing." I said, "Hey, I just my house, had mold, and I think there's probably more in it. Can you look at these mold reports?" And the dermatologist said, "Linda, I don't know anything about mold." And so he wanted to test me for this. That he cut me, he burned me, he biopsied things, and I said, "You got to look at these mold reports." And so finally I did more research, and I found a doctor, by the grace of God, through somebody in LinkedIn, an expert in his industry. And I met with that doctor, had a lot of labs. And I said, how could my skin, my whole body get so sick, in just overnight? And he said, Linda, it didn't happen overnight. If this happened in February and you've been in the house, since June. So from June to December, he said, I exceeded my toxic threshold. So anyway, State Farm is fully aware that their negligence could have killed me had I not figured it out. And I have to deal with this rogue law firm that not only are they trying to say that I missed a deadline, they're trying to correct the judge's rulings on the causes of actions that have already been ruled on. When I spoke to the managing partner, she said, well, Linda, you better take the offer that we're giving you, because you'll lose, and because we're going to redo all of these. And I said, no, your associate attempted that strategy with a second amended complaint, and the judge said, listen, I've already ruled on that. She has authority or approval, whatever words they use, to amend those points for this company. So she said, well, I don't know about that. I'll have to check the file. That was the last I heard from her until I got ex parte hearing notices sent to an email address that they are prohibited by the court to contact me at. And so I kind of brought that to their attention, that she was kind of fully following the bullying and intimidation pattern of practice that has been going on for 2 years, going on 3, I guess. So anyway, they corrected that, and then we had an ex parte hearing last week, and the judge overruled their silly, nonsensical, burdensome events. And they've got no defense for what their clients did. I really think the Attorney General needs to get involved. This is above my pay grade. I'm not an attorney. And we need a constitutional attorney involved in this. Someone recently told me that I need to search California statute of threats. And some of the written threats that I have received fall under that category. And, you know, I don't like being threatened. Nobody does. But these guys, this is insult to injury. So anyway, I'm practicing. I have to get this all down pat. The other points I have to make in my 20-minute testimony are regard commentary, and I have to write an attachment to the trial setting conference. I have to show how that they're deceiving the court again with their motion to compel and discovery by saying that I didn't respond to discovery. And, oh my God, these guys are just jokers. I have to make commentary regarding the Second Amendment complaint and the Third Amendment complaint, because the judge has to determine which one we're going to be using. And yesterday I received an email from the rogue attorneys asking the judge to stick with the second one because I didn't object to that one, because I didn't, because it was replaced by the Third Amendment complaint. And on top of that, that firm was responsible for the NOR notice of NOR notice of ruling, and they did not put in a date to dispute. It just said 60 days. I have a brain injury. I do my best with numbers and dates, but I have very impaired short-term memory. And after the judge said at that hearing months ago, 60 days, there were 3 more pages of discussion on dates of other things due. And I heard the judge say everything would be due on July 6th. So that's what I shot for. I spent several weeks getting this abusive discovery done. But so anyway, now this rogue law firm is going to try to convince the judge to just disregard all of it. And they're trying to cheat their way out of it. State Farm is an evil company. It didn't used to be. But Michael Tipsard must be one creature. I got to tell you, he makes $8 million a year abusing people like me. Whew, dude. Okay. Anyway, and then I also have to get into my oral testimony about the continued threats and chicanery. The managing partner sent me an email and said, well, you sent me an email from your general email address, so I'm going to write to you here. And I thought, no, you're not, honey, because the judge has allowed that to protect me from your company, and you are blocked now, so do not bother me here again. You know, I mean, they were sending me 2, 3, 4, 7 emails a day, demands, excuse me, demands, threats, really scary stuff. And, you know, I try to be brave, but it really sucks being threatened by attorneys, and particularly when they seem to be very unstable and they seem to be operating under racketeering orders. Okay. You know, that's something for, you know, the Department of Justice to investigate. What I can look at is what they've done to me, and what they've done to me is egregiously wrong. I want to go to trial because the people of America need to know what State Farm does with its teams of thugs, they also known as Premier Services members. Okay, so I got to talk about that, and then I have to talk about the stipulations. Oh yeah, we agreed to a stipulation. They gaslight me. They're trying to tell the judge that I'm scary and dangerous and willfully not doing things. And people who know me, who have tried to help me, who are also not lawyers, and some who are retired lawyers, you know, they just think what's happened to me is you know, just terrible. Most Americans will give up. I'm not giving up. You know, I fought and won my civil rights back in a workers' compensation lawsuit. I used to tell the people, I blogged about it because one of the doctors said, Linda, you need to write about this terrible experience. I thought he meant I should blog about it. And so I blogged about it. And because I blogged, I'm alive today. Okay. And because I blog, and now I'm doing videos, you can do a Bing search, Linda Ayers versus State Farm et al. Bing. And there are like a couple billion results. They're not all about me, but the first several pages are. So I feel confident that I've done what I can do for my country, and I will fight this as long as I can. One of my coaches says, Linda, you don't have to fight it. God's in charge. So I guess I'll rephrase that and say, I will keep doing whatever God puts in front of me and bring to you whatever I can figure out to bring to you. And then I hope to write an e-course on how to transcend censorship. I almost gave that up because I thought, well, my God, I'm censored off of everything now. But I'm learning so many new things that I'm going to be able to share with you. So keep the faith and remember, we are the media now. And for that, we, the people, are responsible. God, we trust. Blessings.